In this video, I'm going to show you how to establish any mood or emotion within your chord patterns, whether it's a sad, deep sounding chord pattern or a happy and upbeat sounding chord pattern. Keep in mind, when I say chord pattern, I'm referring to the proper term, which is the chord progression. The chord progression is the emotional backbone of any song. So if your chord progression is weak and boring, listeners aren't going to emotionally connect to your song, and there won't be a good reason for them to want to come back and listen to more of your music. There are tons of ways to make chord progressions that just whack your listeners right in the feels. And today, I'm going to show you one of the most effective ways to add emotional power to your chord progressions. Let's get into it. One of the easiest ways to control all of the emotion within your chord progressions is to understand how to use the scale that the chord progression is written in. The two most common scales in music are major scales. Here's the C major scale. And minor scales. Notice how the aura of that minor scale hits different than the aura of the major scale. Here's the minor scale. And here's the major scale. Let's first discuss major scales. The word major refers to a sound quality that you would associate with happy and positive emotions. One of my favorite ways to use major scales to generate happy, positive, or euphoric chord progressions is to use the 1 and the 4 chords in my chord progressions. But what's that mean? What is the 1 and the 4 chords? Well, every scale has 7 chords associated with that scale. And in my opinion, the 1st and the 4th chords in any major scales carry the most emotional weight of all the chords in that scale. So, when I'm writing a chord progression in a major scale, I want to make sure that I incorporate the 1st and the 4th chord in that chord progression. Here's what I mean by that. Let's use the scale of C major. The 1st chord in the C major scale is going to be the C major chord. I'm going to come up an octave and just double that root note. I'm going to add the perfect 5th and then that major 3rd. The 4th chord in the C major scale is going to be this F. I'm going to double the root note down here, add the perfect 5th, and that major 3rd. And once we have these 2 chords on our grid, I can add any other of the 5 other chords and try to come up with a progression. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to shorten this one. I'm going to step down to the G. And then for the second 2 bars, we'll start off with the 4 chord. And then we'll resolve back on this G. I'm going to go ahead and add a leading tone. I like leading tones that press the tonic of the scale because they just make it sound better. And then we'll get this heavenly sound. You're not going to get a happier sound than that. Wow. Wow. Now for this progression to work, I started the progression with the 1, went to the 5, and then down to the 4 chord, back to the 1, and then to the 5. But you don't have to start with the 1 and then go into the 4. You can start with the 4 chord, or you can use those chords wherever in the progression that you would like, just as long as you incorporate the 1st and the 4th chord somewhere in the progression, and you're going to get somewhat of a happy sound. For example, if I take the 4th chord and start with it, here's the same scale, but this time we're starting with the 4 chord and working our way up to the 1st chord. Once you establish your target emotion within your chord progression, that's when stuff gets really cool. because then you start adding lead melodies, and then the emotion just explodes and gets deeper and deeper. Watch how much more feeling and euphoria comes out of this chord progression when I add a lead melody here. I'm going to use this sound, which is one of the coolest sounds that I've ever made in my life. Alright, ready? Listen to this. The chords made this effortless, by the way. Wow, that's so nice. Now that we covered major scales, let's step into the wonderful world of minor scales. That minor sound is one you would associate with sadder, deeper emotions. To extract all of the emotional potential when writing chord progressions in minor scales, I like to play around with the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords. Let me show you how I would do it. In the scale of C minor, our tonic, or our 1 chord, is going to be the C minor chord. I'm going to root it nice and deep down here. We'll double the root. There's that nice deep C minor chord. The 4 chord in C minor is going to be this F. That's pretty deep. Alright, so I have the 1 and the 4. I'm going to put the 4 over here, and then I'm going to add 2 chords in the middle that make it to that 4. So we'll venture from the 1st to the 4th chord. That's so deep. Yeah, I feel like if you can make it from the 1 chord to the 4, you're almost always going to get a pretty deep sound, because that 4 is such a deep sound. I'm going to start with the 4 this time. Here's another one where we start with the 4 chord, the 5, and then we make it all the way to the 1, and that's where we resolve the loop. It's pretty deep. So what I like to do to check and make sure my ears aren't fatigued is I'll grab a nice ethereal vocal swell that's in a minor key, and I'll throw it on top of my chords. And if it sounds like the emotion is all tied together, then we got something pretty deep. We got something pretty deep. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to learn more about writing chords and melodies and even arranging your own songs, I have a course at the top of the description below. But it is not just a course. It comes with an entire back-end mastermind group where you can ask me any production question that you have and send me your songs for unlimited track feedback. If that sounds like something you're interested in, as I said, there's a link at the top of the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Stay tuned, guys.